It's Monday, March 29th, 2021. This is Roqe. Is it possible to heal a divided world by incrementally discovering our commonalities? What if we realize that for all of the different languages we speak, we very often use common words or even the same words? Iranian-Canadian engineer and YouTube star Bahador Alast has been on a mission to build connections between different peoples by addressing language and words. 3 years ago, he started a YouTube series pulling folks of varying backgrounds together in a fun exercise to explore common terms. Well, the series has become an unqualified viral hit, and Bahador Alast joins us for a feature interview in the Roqe Studio coming up. Plus, the team is here, and we have your letters. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. This is Roqe. Hi there, welcome to episode number 97 of Roqe. Happy post-Nowruz, or still Nowruz. It's kind of like leaving the Christmas lights up for a couple of months after Santa has already come. We keep celebrating Nowruz, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Thank you, Shaya. Khosh omadin, durud bar shoma. Sad sal bazam be in salha. Shaya Jan?
Yes. That's all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very
Thank you for your enthusiasm. We're off to another riveting start. Yes. We're coming to you from Toronto, Canada, with a salute to all of you joining us from around the world. We are on an ongoing mission to build a new audiovisual encyclopedia of Iranian diaspora identity. You can find us on SoundCloud, on Spotify, iTunes, and then Instagram, YouTube, Castbox, and Telegram. So today, in just a little bit, Bahador Alast is joining me in the Roqe Studio. He's become a YouTube sensation. Let me see if I can try and explain this. He takes different people, or people from different languages or cultures or nationalities, 2 languages at a time, and he has them play a game that ends up unveiling how we have similar words in different languages, and thus people feel a real connection. Yes. And the world gets a little smaller. So there's an episode that is a Persian and a Greek, or an Arabic person and a Portuguese person, or somebody who speaks Tamil and somebody who speaks Korean. So, right, Shaya? So you understand.
Yeah.
So and this has become a huge hit, what he does. So he'll be in here, and we'll talk about that. I was thinking, Shaya, for example, there are words in English and Farsi,
yes,
English and Persian, that are surprisingly similar, so that an English-speaking person who knows no Persian might know what word you're saying just from the way it sounds.
Yes, although you speak Persian properly, still I think there is some words that in Persian, I can play this game with you.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I was thinking of words I already know.
Uh-huh.
but like, for example, if you say to a person who speaks only, or doesn't speak Persian, if you say shikar, they would likely figure out that you mean sugar. It sounds like, or if you say mush, they would know you're talking about a mouse.
Dokhtar, dado.
Dokhtar, jangal, jungle.
Oh, yeah.
Pajama,
Yeah,
pajama, right?
Wow.
So now you had something that was that I don't know. I mean, is there any Persian word I don't know?
Maybe you know that, but I'm asking from you and Kian, actually.
All right. I haven't introduced Kian yet,
Oh,
so people won't know who she is.
I don't
By the way, the
exist
fabulous Kian is here.
Ding.
Hi, Kian. And Captain Reza.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. So
Yes.
All right,
the word is malqame.
amalgamate.
Yes,
Oh,
amalgamate.
Yeah, perfect.
Wow.
Well, that's the game.
Yes.
There we go.
That is what Bahador Alast does.
That's fun.
But he does it in different languages. So, and he pairs people often from even cultures or nationalities that have historical enmities or don't, necessarily get along. So he's got one that's like Hebrew and Arabic. It's really fun and interesting. So Bahador Alast joining us in a little bit. Listen, for the folks of you out there who have an iPhone and have not joined us on Clubhouse on Friday nights, come join us. That was pretty good Friday night, wasn't it?
It was a lot of fun, yeah.
We are doing these Roqe town halls on Friday night. They are growing. We had a huge crowd last Friday night talking about Persians and materialism. And among the speakers, we had Tina Parsa and Piaz Miaz and Nima Behnoud, Nimani, Rana Mansour, Tehran Van Qasri, many others. It was great. Shaya, you were there.
Yes.
Again, you were distracted. Like I have this panel of people I'm going to go to, and then Shaya is sitting there, so I have to. He's part of the Roqe team. So I'm like, hey, now let's go to Shaya. And I even big up him. I'm like, oh, Shaya, your perspective will be really interesting. And there's like buses going by and like somebody asking him his order for a burrito. And I cannot think right now because I want to make some order for burrito.
No way.
I don't know what he was doing. I mean, it's humiliating because he's part of the Roqe team. All these other people who are like our guests for the town hall are all
big
prepared.
names.
Nima Behnoud is like, oh, I'm ready. And Shaya, I am vacuuming and also I have some Cheeto in my throat. And don't get me started with Captain Reza, by the way.
Oh, he wasn't even there.
He turned up at 9:30. It was at 8 p.m. It was the 8 p.m. town. It's called the Roqe Town
my
Hall.
gosh.
The guy's on every show. He's like, I thought it was a guy. I missed it.
How convenient.
Yeah.
Usually I'm sitting with my Canadian friends and
Yes.
listen to our Clubhouse together.
Yes.
And sometimes they start to.
Shai, you were not sitting with your Canadian friends, as you put it. There was,
No.
I mean, you sounded like you were at the Canadian National Exhibition. There was there were like roller coaster going by and a seagull and you were ordering food and. I mean, it was a really heavy kind of topic.
Yeah,
We had gotten to a really kind of important
Heated
point, and even
topic.
Ponta the artist was there, and some people were actually defending the fact that Persians love name brands,
Yeah.
and what's wrong with the fact that we kind of like nice things and we're material, we like material things. And then Ponta had said, I feel really uncomfortable when there's people who put such an emphasis on money and stuff. And then so right at the peak of the conversation, Shaya, let me bring in Shaya here. I have to finish getting donuts and then
It took him a while to come on, too. It's
first of all he doesn't come on, so there's silence, everybody's waiting.
static.
Come
Intently
on, I
waiting.
played piano.
Yeah, that was a
Played
nice
the
piano.
We'll do it again on Friday. And then Captain Reza, I mean, you're what? You were in a meeting, quote unquote.
I was.
Yeah, okay.
I was trying to make a buck.
Yeah, okay.
Do better, man. Do better.
And he's he's so innocent. What happened to you guys? I was there, and it's it says 8 p.m.
I
You
came
know,
on at 9:30. As soon as I was done, doing with my side projects,
Right.
I came on. It was 9:30. And
we
then
were
you-
finishing at 9:30. It's an hour and a
I
half.
caught the
How many
last
hours
of
do you
it.
want us to do this?
But it's really interesting. It's really interesting. I love our Clubhouse.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, interesting that you should like it so much because you don't pay much attention while we're doing it. I even I'm so nervous before I come to the Roqe team because again, if it's somebody else, there's some of these are our guests on the stage. I mean, we should not call it Roqe, because I feel the pressure if I want the team to be putting their best foot forward, every time you're just shy.
Make us look bad. I'm kidding.
You're
No,
good,
it's-
Keon. You're always on it. You're ready. I know it's hard because different people are talking, and I don't come to you right away, and so you're sitting there, But I even right before I was I hope Shaya is ready for this,
I think I even heard a toilet flush.
Yeah, there was stuff going on. First of all, Shai, you didn't even start speaking for at least 30 seconds, but we could hear sounds of things. There was like a
Really?
a movie-scape behind you. Yeah.
Oh,
The Von Trapp family.
Yeah. I said first like Shia, and then it doesn't turn on. Like his mic doesn't go on.
Shia?
Shia, are you there, Shia?
Hundreds of people in there waiting intently.
Yeah. 100 people judging whether they're going to listen to the Roqe podcast based on how this goes.
I'm sorry.
It was cute.
Anyway, we'll do it again on Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time, every Friday night at the Roqe Town Hall. If you can find us on Clubhouse, and I feel bad for those who do not use the iPhone and are on Android, because I guess you can't access Clubhouse for now. But you're not missing that much, but we would love to have you at our town halls on Friday night. I should say that one of the precipitants for talking about whether Persians are materialistic, whether the notion of elevating a status based on material wealth is a stereotype or is in fact true about Persians, was our last guest, Pedram Shojai, on our last episode. Fantastic episode, really interesting. I know we've gotten a lot of reaction on this, and he talked about how, he goes by the name the Urban Monk. He's become this author and speaker and proponent of wellness based on Eastern medicine and Eastern practices. And he talks about this moment in his life where he came to a fork in the road and decided he does not want to be an Iranian who is obsessed with making money and having material goods and peacocking around, showing off his status, as he put it. It was a very interesting conversation, and it formed the basis of wanting to talk about that at the town hall on Friday night, as each week we pick our topics based on what we talk about on this show. So many comments about this Pedram Shojai interview. Well, I know you're going to get some of those letters later, but if you guys haven't listened to it out there, please go to our last, it was episode 96 on any of our platforms, and check it out. Speaking of episode 96 and today 97, our 100th episode is coming up in I guess it's in a week and a half, and the 100th episode of Roqe coinciding with the 1-year anniversary of Roqe. Wow. It'll be it's 1 year since we we started, and Captain Reza was this fresh-faced guy with like clean shaven, right, and now he looks like
Gandalf the Grey.
Pretty much, yeah, I do.
He's more mature
clean cut.
now.
What
I gotta make a buck. I gotta make a buck.
I gotta make a buck. Hey, listen, Chief.
So we have a very special guest for our 100th episode. I don't know how I'm supposed to... and actually, we have a very special guest for our 99th episode, too.
That's right.
It's going to be a big week next week. Yeah. So get yourselves ready. Kian Jun, Kian Docht.
I will be ready.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Shia, just try and pay attention. We would love you folks out there to become patrons of our show. If you like what you hear, and for sure if you're a regular listener, $5 a month or $10 a month to become our BFF is all it takes, and it really makes a difference, and we're trying to keep things as commercial free as possible. So go to roqemedia.com, roqemedia.com, and just press on the Support Us button to become a patron, and we crowdfund this, so we really appreciate it. If you like what we do regularly and you check in with us, $5 and $10 a month at roqemedia.com. Okay, so I want to get to Bahador Alast. We're going to come back and do letters and talk about Pedram Shojai, the Urban Monk, and so much more. The fabulous Kian, Captain Reza, Groovy Shia. See you in just a few moments. My featured guest today is coming in as an Iranian-Canadian based here in Toronto, who has created something of an online sensation when it comes to cross-cultural understanding and language. Take a listen to this.
The way this is going to work is I give each side a word, and they read it to the other side, and you have to guess what the word is. We're going to do Persian versus Greek.
Kelit.
Key.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The difference is in Greek is klidi.
We're going to do Persian versus Russian.
200. 200. Yes. Good job.
Okay. But you see, like, it's kind of surprising. You don't expect these words to be.
There you go. Just a little taste of some of the YouTube videos that have cumulatively gotten millions. That's right, millions of views based on people of different cultures, nationalities, or ethnicities sitting in a room and discovering that they literally understand each other when it comes to some common words. The channel is the brainchild of my featured guest today, Bahador Alast. Bahador is actually a full-time engineer and part-time YouTuber who has visited over 60 different countries around the globe and brings people of different backgrounds together through his channel that is just called Bahador Alast. Bahador was born in Tehran. He and his family immigrated to Canada in 1995 when he was 10. He grew up in North York and Richmond Hill, studied mineral engineering at the University of Toronto, and has been working as an engineer for different companies for the past 12 years. In his spare time, he's been able to pursue one of his biggest passions in life, traveling and exploring different cultures. That's what eventually led Bahador to start his YouTube project with his wife, Shahzad. His channel, which currently has over 215,000 subscribers, has grown to be one of the most popular channels in the world, focusing on languages and culture. His videos have been featured on all forms of major media platforms, from India to Serbia to Turkey to Indonesia. It is an unqualified success, and it keeps growing. And right now, in English or whatever global language he wishes to use, Bahador Alast joins me live in the Roqe Studio. Hello, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was wonderful. I always feel like copying that and typing it out. put it in the description.
It's yours. You're welcome to use it however you wish. You've got
just
quite
change
a
it up a little bit.
Listen, I'm quite in love with this channel of yours. The sweetness of it, the underlying message of it. For folks who are not familiar with this, let's start with an explainer. What is it? How is it that you would describe your channel?
So I would say that the main goal of the channel is to find commonalities and similarities between people from different backgrounds as a way of bringing them closer together. Because there's just something special about having something in common with someone. It's just something that clicks when you find that, oh, this person says this word. Now, let's not talk about language for a second. Let's just think about something else, food or music. When you find or meet somebody that has the same taste as you, or you find out that they share the same interests as you, there's something about it that just clicks. You automatically like the person, or you feel closer to them, right? But language is something that everybody uses. We all use it every day. So why not use language as a way of connecting people from different backgrounds? And
so the format is you usually stand in between or sit in between two people of different cultures or
Yes.
Countries or languages, and then you give them a word, right?
Exactly.
Explain what you do.
So I do a bit of research beforehand, and two languages, whatever the languages may be. I find a list of common words between them. A lot of times these words may sound a little bit different, be pronounced a little bit different, but still they are the same, or they sound very close, right? And I basically give a word to each side, they read it, and the other side has to guess what that means in their language, right? And they're always excited and surprised and sometimes very much shocked by some of these common words, right?
How much research exactly do you need to do? Because some of them are Korean and Japanese, and I'm thinking, how does Bahador know the common words that
sometimes? Okay, so the languages that are closer to Persian, I would say, are the easiest to do research on, right?
Arabic, Turkish.
So because a lot of Iranic languages, let's say, or languages that are spoken throughout the Middle East, South Asia, that share a lot of common words with Persian. I would say those are easier. I'm a little familiar with Arabic as well, so that is easy for me to do research on as well. But sometimes, like you said, Korean. When we had one video that's been watched almost 2 million times now, it's Korean and Tamil. And
So how did you research that?
So
I'm assuming you're not fluent in Korean or Tamil for that matter.
No, I'm not. But I have this interest and passion. It's kind of something that I love doing is learning more about languages and the history of languages. So the way that different languages impact each other, that's what really interests me. And someone told me that, you know, Korean, not just Korean, but also Japanese and South Indian languages have a lot of historical links. And at first I was like, okay, I've never heard of this, right? But then I started reading about it, and I'm like, this is so fascinating, you know, it's true. Like, I keep finding words, and then I'm like, I ask like a Korean person, I'm like, can you just pronounce this? And then someone who speaks Tamil, I'm like, can you like, that's the same. How did this happen, right? So then when I put the words together, and that video was so interesting because the two guests had never even heard of this, that there's anything that links their two languages, right? So they were so shocked every time they read a word. They're like, are you serious?
Well, and sometimes you seem to team up countries or languages or cultures that have had some kind of historical enmity or issue, like you have the Greeks and the Persians, or Hebrew and Arabic, or I'm assuming that's by design.
A lot of times it is, yes. You know, for example, Serbian and Albanian, right? And like you mentioned yourself, Hebrew and Arabic. The Greek-Persian conflict, that's just so ancient.
Are we over that?
Yeah, I don't think anybody really like is holding a grudge.
When they say that Paddington Tabriz is theirs, I mean, I get a little worked up. You know, it's feta cheesecake from Iran. No, I agree. It is a little ancient.
But it is that one is interesting. You know, because it's actually funny because when I posted that one,
which one, the Greek-Persian?
The Greek-Persian one, I basically said, you know, in the pinned comment or in the description, that, you know, that the Greco-Persian wars are continuing to you know, more than 2,500 years later, right? So yeah, as a joke, you can link back at it. But a lot of these other ones that you mentioned are more recent
contemporary,
continuing conflicts that are still ongoing, right? And those are, you know, the impact that it has, the positive impact, the feedback that I receive is just tremendous, you know.
Well, some of these videos, like I said, literally have millions of clicks. What tends to be most popular with audiences?
You know, it's hard to say if it's a certain language or if it's something that just like catches people's interest, right? If it's something that has never really been done before, right? Some things I feel like people know about, right? There are certain connections and links that they know about, but there are languages that are not really spoken much. You know, endangered languages like that. I've had a few videos with languages that are endangered, and also
like what?
So, for instance, like the Manx language, which is spoken in the Isle of Man,
right?
And
Manxians,
yes.
Yeah.
So I compared that with Irish, and Irish is a language that, you know, a lot of people even go to Ireland and they don't even realize there's an Irish language. They're just like, oh, you know, they just speak English, right? You know, it's like a language that just kind of like has been fading away, right? And, you know, comparing those two languages, people are like, this is interesting, right? Like, I just want to see what this sounds like, right? But the ones that are, I wouldn't call it controversial, but where it's like there's a political conflict between these two countries or nations, that also catches a lot of
Why wouldn't
attention.
you call it controversial?
Because I don't want it to be controversial. I want it to just be about, like, put politics aside, put you know, religion or any sort of ideology that, you know, creates a conflict
Has
aside.
politics been projected onto any of your videos?
Of course, all the time.
What's an example of that?
Well, we did do a video with Turkish and Armenian. And people obviously know about the conflict there and the history there. And I had to remove this video, long story short.
Oh, wow.
Because the people, you know, sometimes when these videos trend and start being watched by, like you said, hundreds of thousands of people, you can't avoid the negative and the harsh, cruel comments that some people make. And one of the people who participated in the video, it was just too much for her. And she was like, this is starting to really, like, impact me in a negative way. She's like, at first I was so happy about it because there was so much positive feedback. And the way I look at things is, look, 99% of it is positive. That 1%, like, we shouldn't let that.
What about turning off the comments? You just wouldn't want to do that?
I don't want to do that. No, I like that engagement. I think it's nice to have people come in because there's so much positive as well, right? Like, it's not just it's not like it's all negative, right? But you need the negative. Like,
Just to mine that a little bit, you did a video with some Turkish folks and some Armenian folks.
Yes.
And obviously, I would imagine there's some common words that you can easily find between those languages. The video itself was quite benevolent. It went well. Everybody was enjoying each other.
It was great.
Then the comments became about the historical issue, or
yes, and people found one of the individuals through my social media and were threatening her. Like it's really got out of hand.
Right.
Like and the video was watched a lot, right? So I said to myself, like, out of respect for her, okay, I'm just gonna remove this.
Have you had issues with Iranians with any of the Persian videos?
Politically, in the sense that they would make it political and make negative comments, of course. I mean, people come and attack me personally as well, right?
Why did they attack you? For discovering words?
Yes, but people, the problem in this day and age is, no matter what you say, someone gets offended. Of course, yes, right? Well, so they're like, why did you compare us with this group of people? That's just one example.
Right.
Or why did you say, like,
an overtly racist comment?
Exactly.
Why did you compare us with these people?
Yeah. So people say things like this,
right.
and I just ignore it. Right. In the beginning, when you start this off, like, because this was just, it still is a hobby. It's just something we do for fun. And in the beginning, when you hear somebody insult you or try to insult you or say something really negative, it really gets to you, right? At first, you want to respond to them. You want to just, like, after a while, you're just like,
there's no point.
There are people this. Yeah. So
there's no response to that.
And one of the, this really wise or very, very good advice that I received from someone was, if you are only receiving positive comments, then you're not doing a great job. You have to have some negative people in there. So now whenever I hear somebody say something negative, I'm just like, oh, this is just part of the game.
It's a measure of how much you've grown.
Exactly.
It occurs to me that we're sitting here in Toronto, and one of the things I've always said that, actually, not one of the things, the thing I've always said about Toronto and why it's my home city and why is that I really love that it is the most multiracial city in the world. Yes. It really makes a difference in terms of how it affects the culture of this city, and not just the downtown core, but the whole city. Places like North York, like now north of the city, Thornhill, where I grew up, which happened to be very, very conservative and white when I was a kid, but is this real melting pot mosaic of different races and cultures. Do you see this project almost as a reflection of the city you've lived in for the last 25 years?
For sure. I mean, when we started to make these videos, I'm just like, what better place to do this, where you can literally find people in this city who speak any language, like major languages of the world. You can easily find people here, right? And I look at our group of friends and I'm like, oh, we have a very diverse group of friends. Like, we can ask this person and this person, this person. And that's initially how it started, right? Initially, it was just my friends, Shahrzad's friends of our relatives, or like this, right? And then as the channel grew, people find out that we're in Toronto, so they keep messaging and saying, oh, I want to be a part of this. So a lot of subscribers taking part in the videos as well, right? And that's how it started to expand.
Do you look for qualifications? I mean, you seem to have, one of the beautiful things about this, which is also something that could only have happened in the last 10 years, is that it's relatively lo-fi, if you will. It's there's nothing, you don't have fancy lighting, you don't have an expensive set, and even the people are so authentic. They're shy in some cases. I watched a video with Persian and French, and one guy wouldn't even say anything. Just sort of sitting there, it was really sweet.
It was a little nervous, I guess,
clearly there's not rigid casting requirements but what do you look for in terms of the people that you cast?
To be honest with you, I want to give everybody a chance. Like, the way I look, as long as they're fluent in the language and they can represent it, right? But it doesn't matter how old they are. Like, you can see people are much older, there are younger people, teenagers, none of these things, like, to me, matter, right? Like, it's just, if a person has that interest and they want to be a part of this, I would like to give everybody a chance, right? So that's really what I focus on, is do you speak the language and can you represent? Like, are you fluent enough to represent the language?
What's your story? How did this guy who has created this thing? You came from Iran at the age of 10 in 1995.
Yes.
What was the precipitant for your family leaving Iran in the mid 90s?
I would say my parents really just left for us, like myself and my sister. They lived an okay, comfortable life. It wasn't like anything that was harsh or. All of my dad's family still lives in Iran. Mm-hmm. My mom's side of the family, a lot of them have moved away, but they could have just stayed, right? It wasn't really like, I'm happy with the choice that they made because I really don't know what would have happened if I was there. My dad side, like we always joke about this, and we say like, if we stayed in Iran, maybe I would have grown up and become a cleric right now,
right.
Because my dad's side
couple
of the
your uncles are ahund, right?
Yes, yeah,
which is fascinating. I mean,
considering how I don't even associate with the religion at all, right? Like,
how do they feel about that?
I would say like some of them just brush it aside. They don't really like. It's almost like they just ignore it. It's like, no.
Are you in touch with them? The ones who are clerics?
I'm in touch with some of my uncles. Not the clerics. No, I don't talk to them directly, but my dad does, right? Like, I mean, we are in contact.
Are they aware of this project? Are they aware of your channel?
My cousins, a lot of my cousins are, yeah. So yeah, they know about, like,
they're not, the Ahuns are not getting together and look at this one, Indonesia and Persia.
I really don't know if they sit down and watch these videos, but I know that my cousins do, right? So yeah, it's just interesting because like you say, like, my dad tells me like, oh, imagine like you were living there. What would you be right now, right?
Right. And is it your dad or your mom who's from Qom?
My mom's from Qom.
So you've got some roots in the religious.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, ancestry, not yourself necessarily.
Yeah. So
why did they choose Canada?
My dad, had been outside of the country. He actually studied in India and the United States, and throughout that time, he was traveling to different places. And when he came to Canada, he just thought, this place is the best out of all the other places that he had been to, right? So for him, it was like a big decision, like, big. It was very important for him to move here. He always like points out to flaws of other countries, but says that Canada and specifically Toronto is just perfect, and it's the capital of the world, and it's just were you interested in language and different cultures? I was
from the time you were a kid,
very much interested in different cultures and history since I was a kid.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I really don't know what initially got me interested in it, but the more as I traveled more, I became a lot more interested, right? And the thing about traveling is I feel like the first time you travel, just something like makes you want to keep doing it, right?
But you weren't traveling when you were a kid.
No,
so
I was.
This is after you've come to Canada.
Yes.
But you always had this interest in exploring different cultures.
I did. I had like, if you ask my mom, she'll tell you that when I was like 7, 8 years old, my favorite subject was not even a subject, right? I just liked maps. I like to see what countries where, and
I did too.
Yeah,
I was into. Do you ever draw maps?
Yes, of course.
That was my whole childhood, drawing maps.
Yeah, I used to look at like what different parts of the world look like, and then later I would draw it for myself.
Yeah. But what's interesting is, I mean, I didn't become an engineer. You did. Like, you're this cultural and social explorer, and then you went and became an engineer. Yeah, was that familiar pleasure, or was it your dream to be an engineer? I guess
part of it. It wasn't really like my parents were never the type that really forced us or really wanted us to say like, you have to do this or anything like that. So for me, of course, they would be happy. They're happy that you study engineering or you are going to become a professional this or that, right? But it was never any force or this like pressure that you have to do this. I was just I actually liked math. I can't say I was just good at it. I actually enjoyed math. Like, it was a subject that I was good at, and it was always nice because my marks were really high in math and in high school, and engineering just sort of like happened, and I'm like, I can pursue these passions and hobbies as well, but let's get this engineering degree and
Right.
it'll
That's what you're gonna. I can
Yeah,
just see
you
you sitting down with your kids 20 years from now. Get the engineering degree first, like
Yeah,
I did.
and then you can do other stuff.
But
right?
you're no ordinary engineer, because what you do, I mean, this is mineral mining engineering,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And you go to a place called Northwest Territories, which of course Canadians know, but for people listening around the world, you're going to have to explain just how remote this is. I mean, this is pretty freaking remote, where you go and do your
Yeah,
work.
so-
Explain what it is you do.
For people who, like, when I travel and I want to tell somebody where this is, like where the north, because basically the mine that I work at is 350 kilometers north of Yellowknife. So Canadians, when you tell a Canadian person, they're like, okay, wow, that is really far north. But most people outside of Canada don't really know where Yellowknife is. They don't know where the Northwest Territories is. So I just tell them it's the North Pole. And if they don't, if they're confused, I just say, you know where Alaska is? Something like that, right? Because Alaska is a known name, so they just like, oh, okay, then it's really cold. And if they still don't get it, I tell them how cold it gets up there in the winter.
And by the way, what there's no one's making korma sabzi in the Northwest Territories. Like, I love this Persian kid who goes to the, I mean, a very, very remote community up there. You have kind of your schedule, your work pattern is almost like a flight attendant. It reminds me of friends of mine who are flight attendants, where you work for a couple of weeks, I'm imagining very intensely, and then they give you a couple of weeks off to recover, and then you have to go back to the Northwest. And it was this pattern that allowed you to travel, right?
Exactly.
So much.
Yes. So we work 12-hour shifts for 14 days in a row, and then we're off for 14 days. So basically you have half the month off, and that allowed me to travel so much. For a period in my life, I never even go home, right? So I leave the mine, I have a suitcase, and I fly to South Korea or fly to Argentina or wherever. When it was cold, I go somewhere warm in the winter, right? So yeah, like sometimes I was doing that for like 7-8 months in a row. And yeah, so that's really where the idea of these like comparison of languages
that's the genesis of it.
Yes, exactly, because I would go to different countries, and a lot of times I don't know why it's what it is about Serbia and the Balkans that always comes to my mind, is because there I was surprised the most initially, where I would hear words that I'm like, they use a lot of words that are Persian, or we use them as well in Persian, right? So that's kind of like what got me really interested, right? I'm like, okay, this is very interesting. This is cool. I want to look further into this, and I always think back at that, that particular trip really like comes to my mind when I think about this, of how far back this started, right?
Yeah, I when I was a kid, and we were getting, after the revolution and the hostage crisis and stuff, as a kid, you weren't here, but in the 80s it was kind of hard on Iranians. They were, to call you a terrorist, or there was a lot of backlash in the community. And so, and I say this quite shamefully, but for a while as a kid, I wouldn't want to tell people what my background was, so they would go, oh, Jian, is that French? And I'd go, like, I would just kind of like, not answer, hoping that they would think it's French. And then if they pursued it, sometimes they say, oh, so do you speak French? And anyway, people who would find out that I was Persian, I'd go, but we're very similar to French, because we have commode and cravate. It's like cravats, and and I would always have these words, a few words that I would say are like French, because they are, and take some solace in that.
Loan words
and so it's full circle watching your videos and going, I mean, I remember this. I remember finding such a refuge in knowing that our language isn't that different from French, so we can't be that different from French.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that you bring this up, because I can't tell you how many times people have messaged me personally or left a comment, non-Iranians, watching these videos and saying, you have actually changed my perception about Iranian people and Iran in general.
Wow.
Like watching your videos, right? Because initially they come for something else, and then they start watching the other videos, and they're just like, I just never really thought of people from Iran being like this. I didn't think that.
Wow.
So those ones are really nice. It's really nice to hear people say that and see that it's made such a positive impact.
And I'm sure there are a lot more who don't actually comment and tell you this, right? But really, at the end of the day, to know that this is making such a positive
Must
difference,
feel
it's
good.
great. Yeah,
and that feels good to hear that as someone of a Persian background too.
For
to
sure,
hear that.
yeah.
Like just parenthetically, as somebody who enjoys travel like you do and has been to a lot of places, how do you? I'm just curious because the list of places you've been to is very long. It's you've literally been around the world. The problem for me, I love travel, and I had the chance to travel a lot for work reasons, either for TV or for when I was in a band, we would tour, and so I went to all these places. But I tend to find a place that I really like, and I want to go back there. So, for example, I love Cambodia and Vietnam. Those are a couple of my favorite places in the world.
So do I.
So I really want to go back to Cambodia. I have friends there now. I want to see Cambodia. So, but if you're on this agenda of around the world in 80 days or whatever, you want to see every country in the world the way you have, you can't go back to places, can you?
Yeah, exactly. I always want to go, there are places that I'm like, I'll definitely come back. And then it's been like 8 years and I haven't gone back, right? Because I'm like going to other places new places, right? So it's true. Yeah, there are places that are always, I always think about it. I'm like, in the future,
Which is what? What's the top of the list for you?
It's interesting you mentioned Cambodia because that's one of them.
Best.
Yes.
Best people.
Yeah,
love
for sure.
them.
I love the country. There's so much about it that's I feel like is underrated. People always go to Thailand when I go to Southeast Asia. They don't think about Cambodia as much. It's usually Thailand and then it's Vietnam.
Yeah.
And maybe couple other spots, but yeah, Cambodia I feel like is very underrated, but it's such a wonderful country.
Yes,
there's so many places, like Morocco, or in South America I would say Peru. These are countries that I would love to go back to and see more of, because I feel like I just didn't get enough. When you have 2 weeks and it takes a day to get there, and then you got to come back a day. And
Asia is hard, especially if you live here. So with all the success of this channel, it's hard to believe that it's only about 3 years old. I mean, so the story is you guys are, you've done all this traveling, and then you and your wife Shahrazad have this idea for this. I mean, what was the first one you did? What was the initial idea that you put on tape?
The first video, if I could go back in time, like I would change a lot about the first few videos, right? I would use better words, having encountered all of this like feedback from people, and also like I learned a lot myself, right? But the first video was just to go back a little bit before. So the idea was it was actually both of us together. Like Shaz and I were thinking about what's a nice way, like to bring people closer, because we talked about this before, talked about like common terms and stuff between languages. And, we were just thinking like, why don't we like invite our friends to come over, just tell them this idea. Because I always tell her, I'm like, did you know that, in this language they say this, or did you know that, in this dialect of Arabic, they use this Persian word, like this stuff always came up, right? So she was like, okay, well, we invite people and, play it like a game, right? And the first video we made was actually Persian with German. And the reason I say that I would do a better job is because I've come to learn a lot of more interesting words that I would use. Yeah.
Kudos to Shahrazad. What a weird nerd she married. This guy who's like who's like obsessed with finding these words from the I mean, I love it, but it's and is she into this? She is passionate about
this? For sure. She definitely like, if it wasn't for her, this would never be possible, because first of all, she is interested in it and she enjoys it as well. She was the one helping with like the initial videos. She was the participant in the videos, right? Until it started to grow, and she's like, I don't want to give other people the chance. Like, why should I be?
She was the Persian person.
Yeah, she was the Persian participant.
When did you realize it was getting? When did you first realize how wildly popular this is becoming?
It was probably in like early to mid 2018, which would be exactly like around 3 years ago, right? That's when I was like, okay, this is like a lot of people are watching these videos, right? And I'm like, we could do a lot more with this, right? And we could definitely like include other languages. We could like extend it, and you get a lot of ideas, right? As the channel grows, you get a lot of feedback. People tell you this, and sometimes the feedback is not really good, but some of the stuff that people tell you, I always think about what everybody says, right? And and I just.
What was the first thing that went viral, quote unquote?
It was I think the Hebrew Arabic video, because that was done pretty much 3 years ago, right? And that video was kind of a hit because people didn't really, here's this lady from Israel, and here's an Arab woman, and they're sitting down. They don't really know much about each other's languages, and
they don't know each other, right?
No, they don't know each other. They've
most
never
of the
met.
people on these.
Yes,
on your
exactly,
they don't
exactly.
know each other,
Yeah. Pretty much everybody. There's only a few cases where they're friends from before,
right?
But they don't know each other. They sit down at first. They don't know what to expect. They read a couple of words and they're both so excited and laughing, and they basically become friends. And then it just looks so nice. Because it's like. Nobody's talking about politics or any sort of conflict here, and the video just grew so much. It's been watched over 1 million times, and then I noticed later on, not just on YouTube but on different platforms, people are doing similarities between Arabic and Hebrew. This became kind of like a trend to compare.
I've seen some others. Do you know that? Were you the first?
I don't know if it was.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not going to claim that I was, but I have seen videos made afterwards, right? Yeah.
You had to have been shocked by when this started, when you start doing numbers in your hundreds of thousands and then millions. You're this engineer in Toronto who's doing this thing, low quality thing that you shot and put out. I mean, no offense, but it's not.
No, it's true.
That's what I love about it. It's not a CBC production.
Exactly,
or something,
exactly.
It's like.
And I always said to people when they're like, oh, you should get this and that, and I'm like, the idea of these videos is just people getting together, Right. In the beginning, we're just using a phone to record. Then I got a better camera, and so when I started, I'm like, okay, this is growing. Maybe I'll invest a little bit too.
Soon there's going to be flash pots and theme song by Drake, and you'll jump the shark. Nobody will watch anymore. I mean, speaking of which, you don't have any sponsors. You don't have any corporate logos or ads that I can see, other than the YouTube ads, the ones that appear on monetized videos in general on your channel. Is that by design?
It is, for sure, because I've never, I can't really name the number of times potential sponsors have reached out to me, but I rejected all of them. And I just told them, it's just not for me. You're offering me, however many $100 to talk about your product, and I don't fault people for accepting it, right? I'm not saying that people are wrong for doing it. That's perfectly fine. It's just not for me.
So if Pepsi came to you
and
tomorrow and said, we're going to give you and Shahzad $1 million, just put the Pepsi logo on your videos.
Well, that's a little different. I think I mean, if you
everyone has
really
a price, man. Everyone has a price.
At some point, you have to say yes. I mean,
listen, Pepsi might do that. You're getting millions of views. You're getting more views than most network television shows.
It's true, and some of the videos are actually on Indonesian TV. With my permission, right?
Okay.
But sometimes they don't ask for permission. So now I put the logo on everything because I keep seeing somebody sends me, they're like, oh, this is so exciting. They're showing you on this. I'm like, no, that's not exciting. They took the video and they didn't even ask me.
But you do get the money from the clicks. You get the monetized.
Well, the channel is monetized, right? But I mean,
that's got to be something. If you're getting millions of views, but you wouldn't see this. You're not ready to stop being an engineer and become a full-time YouTuber.
No. It's that this idea always comes up, but it's just, you just can't predict the future, right? What if one day this just there's 20 other channels doing the same thing and doing,
well, then you go back to the Northwest Territories and find some minerals, I guess. I mean, why not run with it, though,
It's true. Yeah, and the thing is, when something is your hobby, you don't even think of it as work, right? You just do it, even though it takes a lot of time now. I do it for fun. I enjoy it. It's it's not work, right? It's just like
let
enjoyable.
me come at this from a different angle and from apply a critical lens to it, okay? Without wanting to necessarily be, I don't want to Asiat you here, you know. I mean, on the surface, some folks, in terms of your mission of world peace, bringing people together, some might say, so we have some common words with other languages. So what? I mean, what does that prove? What do we gain by that?
Well, you know, I always say that when you find something in common, and you know what, this is not for everybody, right? Like a lot of people might find it very boring. It's not interesting for them at all. But the reality is, when you meet someone that you don't know, right, and you find out that you have something in common with them, there's just something just clicks, you know. And that's what I always find, that when people realize they have something in common with a person from this nationality or someone who speaks this language or from this country, they just feel like this, and I'm not saying like a strong bond, but there's a bond, you know, there's something that's like, oh, you know what, we are connected.
Yes.
And really, when you think about it, the entire world is somehow connected. Like we're all, in a way, one way or another, you can find something that connects us, right? And that's what these videos are all about, right? It's about like finding out more about each other, and even if, you know, like the word is not the same, like you just learn about each other, right? You know, it's not necessarily about like having common words, because
I contacted my sister, the linguistics professor. She's like a lifeline, you know, that old show where they used to call the lifeline to, you know, for me when it comes to language, I always put things through, check in with her. And she said, you know, what you're doing in terms of the common words is not a huge discovery. In other words, we know that there's, but it is really important on a social level, just as you're saying, in the way that it creates the ties that bind us, a sense of one world. Can you think of examples of what you've seen about how this can create some level of understanding or bonding from a positive standpoint?
Well, I can relate it to just the Iranian community.
Okay.
I mean, there are so many examples, but a lot of Iranian people, for lack of better terms, have a negative or a prejudice towards other. And I'm not going to just say Iranians. This happens everywhere in other countries. But so the fact that I see so many of them come to me, and see that, you know, we've done language comparisons with all of the neighboring countries of Iran, or across the region, you know, further out, and a lot of times these are countries that, you know, people might have a very negative view of. And, you know, when I hear people write to me or comment and say that I used to like think very negatively, or, you know, you've changed my perception. I just see that, you know, I never thought that we could get along so well with these people or with this group or whatever, right? That stuff I think is very, you know, it's very touching. You know, I love that. I love.
And it's amazing how just finding one commonality can completely change can lead to that sense of connection.
Yes.
Right. There's an old an adage or saying that I really love about travel is like, do you travel to find what's different from the way you live, or do you travel to find the commonalities? You know, and it's very true that when you discover the commonalities, I mean, it's like if you take away all the weighted corporate imperialist, implications of fast food chains. When you go to somewhere completely different side of the part of the world and you see a familiar restaurant and you go, oh, there's a sense of this, you know, this is like my home, you know. There's a sense of, and I'm always transported, as I was thinking about this interview, I'm transported to this. When in 2014 I was covering the Sochi Olympics, and so we're in Russia, and you know, the Olympic Village, the Olympic bubble is this kind of is its own thing, and you're not supposed to really travel outside of that. So we took a bus and went, you know, 50 miles outside of Sochi. So now we're in a little town in Russia, in southern Russia, and we went to a bar. This is a friend of mine and I who was working on the Olympics with me. And we were having some drinks in this bar, and we met these young guys. They could tell that we were from away, I guess, you know. And it turns out they could speak zero English. You know how the sort of the bigoted idea that people who speak English have, where you can go anywhere in the world and somebody will understand you. And like, these guys know English. They're, Russian or nothing else. And we didn't speak Russian. I mean, other than spasiba or, hello, whatever. And so there was this weird kind of hand gestures, desperately trying to understand each other. And finally, for some reason, we started talking about hockey, or, we mentioned Pavel Datsyuk, right? This Russian hockey player is in the NHL. And it was like, oh, Datsyuk. And we were like fast friends. We became buddies. In fact, we stayed in touch, for a while after that, just on the basis of of knowing common hockey players. The Russian guy and the Canadian guy happens to both like the same hockey player. So
it's funny.
Those little bonds, are huge.
I have a similar story from the Dominican Republic where we were in a taxi and the taxi driver didn't speak any English, and I just started to name all the Dominican baseball players, and he was so happy. So I kept going one by one, every name I remembered, and he was just so excited.
And I see on your series, I see the faces of these people that you bring in when the Greek person says to the Persian person, says a word, and the Persian person recognizes it. For both of them, it's this euphoric moment.
Yeah,
of like,
exactly.
No way!
You just turn into like a little kid. Where I don't know what it is about it. When you find like a common word, they just get so excited. They always laugh, because there's just something about it. I don't know what it is. That just gets humans so excited when they're like, this person says the same thing as me.
And people are really into language. I mean, people, I was trying to think, what is the magic sauce? I think you've created something really authentic and beautiful, but millions of views, I think people are actually genuinely interested in these words too, the languages that you're promoting. I was asking you before we did the interview whether the audiences for each video are simply based on the cultures that you're exploring. So if there's an Indonesian Persian one, if it's just Indonesians watching, and you said, well, that's somewhat true, but there's also just an audience who are into these videos in general, right?
Absolutely. There are people who watch all of them, right? And it's a very large group of people that watch every video. It doesn't matter what the language is. They're just interested in it. They're interested in finding out more about different cultures, about different people. And I feel like we live in an era or a period of time where we have this unique ability, unlike, say 50 years ago, where even if we're not traveling, we can get to know people from all these different parts of the world and see how much we connect with them.
You don't have to go back 50 years, buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not even that long ago, right? So I think that's why it has such a large audience, because a lot of people are just interested about knowing about this culture or this language or these nationalities. So yeah.
Do you hear from people in Iran?
A lot.
You do?
A lot.
Because I know YouTube is difficult to get.
Yeah, but
there.
they use a VPN.
Okay, and what do they say?
They love it. I have had, since we started doing videos online, 3 people who actually live in Iran have been in our videos.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So despite all its complications that they have to use a VPN just to get on Zoom, and it slows down the bandwidth and everything, I was just so happy that somebody who's living in Iran can be a part of this as well, right?
Yeah.
Because they always say, I've been watching all these videos and I really never thought that I could be part of it, right? 3 people so far have been involved in videos that live there, and they say that people watch your videos a lot. One of them tells me that people have recognized them a few times on the street because he's been in the video. They're like, you're the guy from the...
What about you? I mean, I love, by the way, that this channel is called Bahador Alast. You clearly started it as just your name, and then it's got millions of views. So your name has become synonymous with common words that we have.
And it's funny because when you go look at like the source of how people found this video, what they search for is my name first.
Right.
It's like 33.8% searched for your name, and then 22% searched for like Arabic.
Do you get recognized from this?
I've been, a few times, so have other people in the videos. Like a lot of times people have walked up to me and said something, or we were in like a plaza somewhere in North York, and some guy just yelled out, "Yo, I love your videos." I couldn't even like see him. I'm like, okay, thanks.
Right. It's such a cool thing to become known for.
Yeah,
this language idea.
And you mentioned that it's the channel just carries my name. That just shows that this was really never meant to.
Yes.
Or I never thought that it would
it's not
really
some
grow.
big
It was just like,
brand
okay, this is my channel.
Although
like
people are interested in you. There's your wedding video with you and Shahrazad has like 250,000 views. I don't know who's watching these. Like who they're fascinated by.
People are watching a lot of wedding videos.
That's right. There's a wedding video. So
they see the name and they see the thumbnail and they're like, okay, I'm gonna watch this, right? And you watch one, you watch 20 other ones.
Let's see how opulent it is. Let's see if he has the same. If the suit is as good as mine. So the obvious question before I let you go is where, do you have a sense of, do you guys have conversations about where you want to take this?
Well, ideally, I wanted to continue to have this positive impact. At the end of the day, that's what matters the most for me, right? The reason I rejected all these sponsors is because the money is not really, let's just say like, I don't care about it as much as, I'm not going to say it means nothing, because that's just, that would be a lie, right? Of course, everybody gets motivated by money, right? But it's not that big of a deal as much as the impact that it has.
That's not how you're measuring your success.
Exactly. I measure it by the number of people who reach out to me and say how much they love the work, how much it's making a difference in their lives. And, people say, like sometimes I just sit there and watch them because my mood just like improves by like listening to these and watching the interactions between the two people from two different parts of the world, so to see that, continue to grow and have like a positive impact, not just like among, like I was saying before, how it's changed like a lot of Iranian people and their perception to become more positive, but also globally, right? Like everywhere in the world.
Do you have an all-time favorite word that transfers to more than one language? One that you're proud of that you discovered, Korean or something?
There's so many, but I would say like there's really not a single word that I would say it's I just think the video between Tamil and Korean is the one that I am most proud of.
Yes.
Because I feel like I discovered something that many people among their own communities had no idea about, right?
Right.
Whereas some of the other ones, it's like a lot of people know about it, right? But this just seemed like such a
stretch.
Exactly. And another one that I've been working on is connecting the indigenous, like native languages in Canada and basically North America to Turkic languages spoken throughout the Russian Federation and and I got to do a little bit more work on that one, but I think that would be that would be another level of, I think that would just be a major discovery.
That's really
if you can really
interesting.
Find the connection.
It's really interesting. Listen, it's a really beautiful project.
Thank you.
And when I was talking to my sister, we were both just talking about how much we love it, just because of the spirit of it. Is especially in a world where so many YouTube videos are about things that tear us apart. I mean, there really is a spirit of connection and coming together in this, and both in the process and in the people and their reactions. Proud of you, and
thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in and doing this.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure, and I really appreciate that a lot. I've been a fan of yours for a much longer time, so this is really wonderful, and it means a lot to hear that. So
thank you.
Thank you so much.
And apologies to Shahrazad. Next time she's got to be here with you.
For sure, yeah. Next time she'll be excited to hear that.
Bahador Alast, an Iranian-Canadian engineer, YouTube sensation. His channel dealing with languages and culture is called Bahador Alast. Bahador joined me here in the Roqe Studio today. Just enough time there to get a little photo together. Bahador Alast has left the studio, and Fabulous Keon just walked in. Let's get the microphones on, like Captain Reza, Groovy Shaya. Oh. Well, I really enjoyed that.
Me too.
I'm not surprised. He's got that interesting project, and he's an interesting guy to talk to. I love this. I'm so... there's something about the fact that he's an engineer, and he reminds me of my cousins who are engineers, like a really nice, sweet engineer guy. And then he's got this wild other side, like I'm going to do a language series, and then he goes up to the Northwest Territories, and then for 2 weeks, the other 2 weeks he travels, and it's just a very fascinating character, and it makes so much sense that whilst he's kind of a modest, is almost a shrinking violet, that with these YouTube videos, he's created something that is such a sensation. It makes sense because he's so interesting. And I didn't want to go too deep into it, but I'm fascinated by how much research he must do, or how much preparation, especially once we get away from Persian and English and Arabic. I mean, how he's exploring, Korean and Hebrew and Tamil and knowing which words to use, that they'll be the common words for them. I just think it's fascinating. Shaya, did you enjoy that?
Oh yeah, I really like what he's doing, and I think you're right. I mean, the way of he try to make videos, like low budget videos and very cozy.
Yeah.
It really helps. And
you know what we call that? Hockey. Hockey. Or maybe we say Khodemuni.
Khodemuni, that's more like.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm fascinated by his current project on indigenous people and some region of Russia. It was wow.
It's going to be interesting.
Yes,
yeah. Captain Reza?
I love the guy. He's he's sweet. He's just, aside from his work and his
he's a nice man.
And he's
very nice
such a nice man. Like I became a fan of his. Like I didn't know him before he was pitched to be on the show, and then we booked him. But I actually watch every now and again. I've been watching his videos. They're very entertaining, and he is everything my parents wanted me to be.
Right.
He's an engineer. He's got a good family.
He's
and
successful. Everything your parents wanted you to be.
Good looking? Is that what
A good head on his shoulders, an ability to write.
all of the above, really?
You want me to be on Clubhouse next week, huh?
Nice voice.
Nice voice. That's true. He does have a nice voice. But no, I really, really enjoyed it. I wish him all the best.
And the fabulous Keon.
He's doing something really beautiful, and I have such an appreciation for anybody that does something outside of their regular profession to like connect cultures together. That's something we desperately need in this world. And it's so true how he says a lot of times when we find something familiar, like familiar ground with somebody else, we immediately like that person. Like I remember years ago I was in Bosnia, and like I knew nothing about their culture, and just seeing all the Middle Eastern influence and just their food, the way they talk, the warmth of the culture, I was so fascinated by this. And so, I appreciate what he's doing, connecting cultures.
As I mentioned, that my sister had said, it's not breaking huge ground in terms of discovering that there's common words. That's not but just the sort of game that he's created, the practice of it, the sport of it, if you will. It's so simple and so basically shot and everything. Think about how much, Reza, you're in the business. Think about how much certain networks, big TV networks or movie studios pay to try and create something that's going to go viral, and with immaculate sound and 100 different camera angles and scripts and all, and they get nowhere. And this is this little organic thing of, let me bring two people from different cultures or different walks of life together to find common words, and it's become this sensation.
It's 100% true. Like networks, they put writers in a room and creators to come up for hours to come up with ideas for such shows, for concept, for things like this, and they pour money thousands and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, into creating something that can go viral and bring an audience with it, and would be informative, would be thoughtful, interesting content. And he does it out of his own home, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't have a collaborative.
He started
studio.
to, but yeah.
Yeah.
You know what my favorite part of the interview was? I'm just thinking about it now. You know what it was? I said, this is my favorite part. So listen, would you ever take corporate money as a sponsor? We will never take corporate money. What if Pepsi gave you $10 million? Well,
that's a different story.
Never say never, right?
There's a price for
It's the
everything.
best.
And
Yeah.
Pepsi should really give him $10 million.
Yeah, take the Pepsi money, man. Come on. All right, it's Monday, and before we go, we got to get to business here. It's time for Letters of the Week.
Try not to say. Just once. I would like to.
You know what's weird is we do Letters of the Week at the beginning of the week.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Well, it's
Letters
like from
of
the
last
previous
week.
week.
It's for letters of the previous
Yeah.
week, I suppose.
Yeah, it makes
yeah.
sense to me.
We kick off the week with letters of the. You have the letter of the week on a Monday.
From last week.
It's, nothing makes any sense.
Well, on that positive
Sorry.
note.
The segment's canceled after today. Go ahead, Kia.
So last week on episode 96, we had Iranian-American author, Qigong master, and filmmaker Pedram Shojai on the show. He's otherwise known as the Urban Monk,
Yes.
a Persian monk. Have you ever heard such a thing? So on YouTube, we have Ali Khalili wrote, I would put this episode in my top 10 list from the 96 episodes of Roqe so far. Very provocative. With regards to social media, in my opinion, having the right choice is the key, as there's lots of garbage out there. Good job, Roqe Team. Keep up the good work.
I love it.
Nice.
Do you think Ali Khalili has listened to all 96 episodes?
Oh, he's written to us a
Oh,
few
has he?
times, so
Oh.
I believe it.
I'm very grateful to Ali
Yeah.
Khalili then.
And then we have username just one, the
Okay.
number one, wrote, just one correction there in the end. Our parents, relatives, and people we know never got spit on, in quotations, for any reason. That is an utterly false and overly generalizing claim. Iranians in general lack socializing and assimilating skills that migrating to a new country requires. It's always the images of life in Iran and what they had in Iran that dominates their decisions, and therefore, they want to always build a life based on those values. Not many Iranians have embraced change, real change that is a crucial aspect of life in the diaspora. So bottom line is, if you don't want to get disrespected or whatever, learn to respect and adapt to the new culture. Good content. Good job, Roqe.
Okay. Well, that is this one person is reacting to Pedram Shojai talking about it being a tough time when post-hostage crisis, post-revolution, when he came to the United States, I should say, as a kid. I think this person has got it wrong. If you think that people were not spat on or victims of discrimination, and still are, but certainly in the 80s and 90s, if you're an Iranian in North America, it doesn't matter how much you adapt to the new culture. Trust me on that one. There was, but maybe this person's talking about a more contemporary setting and talking about how people should be careful to or want to assimilate somehow. Interesting.
I guess I've seen it, I'm sure you have as well, where Iranians have been here for decades and for some reason still don't speak English.
That's true.
You know,
That's
they're
true.
still
Yeah,
so
yeah,
into their
yeah,
communities
yeah.
that they haven't assimilated.
Like Reza.
Precisely like Reza.
I'll start my own YouTube
His English
channel.
is brilliant.
All right, next up we have username Yurik Beg.
Oh.
I don't know if that's a name, but anyway. It says, thanks to Pedram Shojai, the only known celebrity monk among Iranians. We indeed associate monks with pretty smart people.
Thank you.
All right, then on Facebook we have Mahsa Sheikh wrote, inspiring interview. I just bought the book Focus online. Thanks for introducing Guru Pedram to us.
Ooh, thank you,
Very
Massa.
nice. And then Max Merjoui wrote, very interesting. We need more humans like Pedram. We indeed do. And then we have Bahador wrote, one of the most wholesome and enlightening interviews, especially for the majority of us in our fat hang whose ultimate salvation in life is to cultivate their BMWs. As a practicing Qigong lover, I really enjoyed hearing that an Iranian like Pedram exists. Thanks for delving deeper in this community, Jian. Beautiful. And then on Instagram, we have Roqe Studio wrote, overusing social media usually gives us a sense of guilt that makes us block the applications after a while. But instead of blocking or deleting them completely from our lives, we need to manage our time in every aspect of our life.
Sure.
That's in reference to his talk about balancing social media.
Right.
And then we have Marlene Curry wrote, I felt like this episode was speaking to me. I have to agree with Pedram that life in the busy city is slowly killing us. As a young adult, after graduating from university, I made a fast exit plan from rural life. However, that plan changed when I inherited a farm at age 26. Many years later, I have embraced the off-the-road life. My quality of life and my family's life has changed by living in a quieter way with less chaos. Maybe we're not at the heart of the concrete jungle, but have a chance to press pause. Thanks for the great show. Looking forward to your 100th episode. Congratulations in advance.
Thank you, Marlene.
All right, then we have the letter of the week.
Oh.
So this is in reference to our Nowruz home video that we released a few weeks ago, the infamous video. On Instagram, we have username Naqme11 wrote, Dear Roqe Team, your Nowruz video was a great addition to my New Year celebration. Loved every second of it and laughed so much over the white fish discussion. I was so happy to see you all. You are all beautiful and very talented. And the beautiful part goes more towards Kian.
Oh.
Eat your heart out, Reza. Your show was a great meditation for me during this pandemic. Every time I listen to your podcast, I feel like I have to thank you all for what you're doing and for doing it so well.
Thank you,
Beautiful
Naqme.
letter.
Merci. That's really nice. Notice how the letter of the day is always something that says something nice about Kian.
I know, right?
When has it ever said it?
I have this one as the letter of the day. The
And
most
it
beautiful
just says-
part goes to, and then she does the English accent. The most beautiful part is more meant towards Kian,
When do I
the
ever?
exception.
Hey,
Philip and
I got called Miss Idaho last week, so I needed some retribution here.
There's a compliment. You've seen Miss Idaho? Radiant woman.
Oh, goodness.
All right. Thank you very much, Naqme. Thank you to all of you who've written in to us. Please continue to do so at info@roqemedia.com or on any of our platforms. Thank you, Captain Reza, Groovy Shaya, the fabulous Kian. Looking forward to Thursday. We've got a couple of great guests coming up this Thursday. This is Full Time for Roqe for today. Remember, for all things Roqe, for your full Roqe diet, go to our website, roqemedia.com. All of our episodes are there, a list of all of our guests, some of our new videos that we've put up. Roqemedia.com is also where you can become a patron of our show. And we really appreciate it when you do. Thanks to the amazing team who put this show together. Producer Susan Ponce, the artist, the fabulous Kian and thoughtful Nagin, Savvy Roham, Master Muhammad, Aghay Merdad, Chef Haas, Captain Reza, and Groovy Shaya. Thank you to all of you out there supporting us and sharing our content. Please subscribe on any of our platforms if you've not done so already. You can find me on Instagram at Jian Ghomeshi. And as ever, Mizun Bashi.